Love is a high-risk behavior. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast, High Risk for Heartbreak. I am your host, Christina, and I am so glad that you decided to join me today. I'm excited for holiday season is here. You guys were in it. I've already started decorating my apartment. Some of it you can see. Well, you probably can't see any of it, actually. It's mostly over here and over there. But there's ornaments literally everywhere, all over my floors. But you guys can't see that, and you don't need to. I hope you guys have a fantastic Thanksgiving holiday, and I want to jump right into this. Last episode, we did an episode on unforgiveness, and in particular, I was speaking about unforgiveness in friendships. In the friendship holiday season, I wanted to make sure that you guys had something valuable to chew on as you were getting ready to go into spaces where you're going to be around your friends, and perhaps a lot of them might be long-term friends, and there have been some wounds and some bruises along the way. Continuing on from that, we won't be speaking specifically on friendship relationships today. We will be speaking on all types, but I do want you to know that this could be valuable for friendship relationships as well. And unforgiveness and offense go hand in hand. So today we're going to be discussing releasing offense. This may be something that you don't think you need to do, and that's fine. That's fine. I just am taking you guys along this ride because it's something that I feel God is working in my life on. So join the ride with me. A person's wisdom yields patience. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense. That's Proverbs 19:11. Which team are you on? Offense or defense? When I was younger, like many of us, I played on varying sports teams. Some sports teams have individualized events like track and field, which was my favorite. And in track and field, I ran the individual events of the 100, the 200, and I did in high school the long jump and triple jump as my field events. So my favorite event was the 4x1 relay, which is a team event, and it was one of my absolute favorites. This race requires 4 athletes to run 100 meters and pass a metal baton in an exchange zone, each of the runners attempting to make their personal best in their run, which is called a split, and to create a team record based on time. Track and field is the one sport that allows athletes, I think, to truly have their personal best and have a collective best or collective records in a way that most other sports teams don't have. My 100 or 200 personal best is not contingent on any of my teammates and what they do in their events, even if they're also running the same race in the same heat that I'm running in. However, within the relay events, the 4x1, and there are some other relay styles as well, 3 different things are happening. The relay runners are running for their personal best, or what we would call a split time. The relay team is running for their team best, and the relay team is also running for best overall among all the teams. This all becomes a bit more complicated, of course, to understand when you start to add in preliminaries and semifinals and final events of the different races, and you have multiple heats, and you have multiple teams within the heats, and multiple people from the same team in the heat. It gets very complicated, but to keep it basic, track and field events are, in my perspective, all offensive. There is no defensive team unless we're also all defensive in track and field. So let's look at this in a different way. Basketball. I also played basketball for a very, very short stint of my life, and then I developed trigger finger literally in both of my index fingers, which it's a whole thing. But the game of basketball is very much unlike track. There are very clearly defined offensive teams and defensive teams, and they switch. Right? These teams switch positions immediately after whatever the offensive team does, whether it's scoring, a foul happens to them, or there's some other reason that a play is stopped. They constantly throughout the game will go tit for tat between who is the offender and who is the defender. And what I have discovered over the years is that relationships with people that we like and love have the potential to live within 2 different categories. The first category is you are a team playing for your personal best or a personal record in your relationship. And then the second one is you're playing basketball. One offends and the other defends. And you switch until someone scores, is fouled, or there is a play that is stopping your relationship. In the realm of relationships, it seems to mean something very different from the way that we use it in context to sports when we say offense and defense. In sports, offense or offense is a great place to be. It's a place where the potential for scoring and advancing yourself and advancing the team happens. Offense is a place where you are in control and you get to shape the decisions of your opponent through the different, moves that you make. Offense is a potential place of victory. In the realm of sports, defense is oddly also a great place to be. You're defending your goal. You're defending yourself and your team from attacks from the opponent. You're preventing them from scoring and advancing in the game. Offense and defense are equally valuable in the game of basketball. However, in the arena of relationships, neither proves to be a profitable place to be. Certainly not if you're looking to create personal and team bests. They are both in opposition to harmony and success in the relationship. When I look at my relationships as a relay event in track versus a basketball game, it has helped to shape the way that I view asserting healthy relationships. I see myself as an individual that is part of a team, seeking to achieve my personal best and aid in the best for the relay team. I seek to hand off the baton of responsibility when it is my relational teammates' time to advance us in the race. And so today, I want to focus on the thought that relay runners are responsible for personal best and the shared responsibility of passing the baton for their team's best. The greatest relationships I have seen are a lot like relays. And on that note, let's relate. I've been dealing a lot with the topic of offense lately, as you all know. And in my personal life, this has been something that's been coming up. It's been coming up for me, especially this year. And I think part of that is because I've been going on this healing journey the last couple of years, and God has really been working on healing my heart. But now we are in a stage of reconditioning my heart. I have been reflecting in this last few years on what my relationships have come to and which ones have gone and where my responsibility lies in all of it. I know that I am responsible for how I run this race called life on a grand scale. So you better believe that I am acutely aware of the motion or the stagnation in my relationships and how that is my personal responsibility. I have mutual responsibility to run the race for my personal best and my overall team best in my relationships. My circle is small because the responsibility of having friendships and close relationships is actually a really great responsibility. That's how I see it, though. To try and not be at your personal best for someone who was depending on you is like dropping the baton in a relay race. It's like underestimating the handoff and slowing down, causing your friend or your teammate to have to pick up your slack. It's like running too quickly into the exchange zone, overpowering your teammate and potentially disqualifying the entire team. And when it comes to relationships, that's what offense or offense and defense perform like. Dropping the things that needed to be handed off, rushing too quickly to hand them off, and dragging the handoff. I had to let go of a friendship earlier this year that really hurt me. It hurt me to see her go. And I really haven't spoken much about it because in this time of reflection during the holiday season, it just happened to come up for me. So, I'm missing her, I guess. And so I have been really thinking about this particular topic. Offense and defense were the only reasons that we parted ways. But truthfully, those things were just birthed from an unequal yoke, or essentially us not being on the same page about our boundaries, about our values and our non-negotiables. Now, I've mentioned this before, values, non-negotiables, your standards, those things are very important to how your relationships will play out. So if that's not something that you have explored and really defined for yourself, I would urge you to do that definitely before the year's end. That way you can go into this new year with a better sense of understanding of what you require and what you are willing to give in your relationships. In our everyday lives, we have hundreds of responsibilities to maintain a successful life. As children, we were responsible for listening to our parents and our guardians. We were responsible for keeping our rooms clean, maintaining hygiene, attending school. It was simpler times then. And as we have grown, of course, into adulthood, the responsibilities have greatly, some might say gravely, increased. Our responsibilities didn't change, rather they begin to kind of stack and compound on each other. And as we age, we hopefully gain wisdom, not just responsibility, but we absolutely do gain responsibility. In our relationships, we are responsible for how we live out the knowledge that we did receive along the way. And I want to take a minute to define what offense and defense are so that we have a framework to continue to work from. According to Merriam-Webster, offense is something that outrages the moral or physical senses. The act of displeasing or affronting. Affronting is a word you guys are going to hear me say a few more times. The state of being insulted or morally outraged. And this last one is really my absolute favorite. Offense is a breach of moral or social code. Offense, in summation, is defined as a blow to a person's moral or social beliefs. Defense is defined from Merriam-Webster as well to keep it consistent. It means that it is an action or an act of defending, capability of resisting attack, an argument in support of or justification of. Offense, when it comes to relationships, is something that occurs outside of ourselves. Defense occurs after offense. I believe hurt is one of the most basic words that we could use to describe being offended, right? It's being insulted. It's being outraged. It's being offended. It's being afflicted. It's being damaged. It's being misled, harmed, wounded, so forth, whatever words you want to use. I think all of these words can be summed up by the word hurt. Now, you might find the word hurt to be a little too bland, maybe to describe the severity of whatever it is that you might be offended by, but nonetheless, at the core of you, hurt is what you're physically feeling, or maybe on a more moral sense, you might be feeling from someone else. In my lost friendship, we both were hurt by the things that we held against each other. And the damage that occurred harmed the safety that we once had in the relationship. That last straw caused me to shut down, and then she shut down. And guess what? We were playing basketball. It'll all make so much sense in a second. When someone insults my moral or physical senses, there is a feeling, and maybe you will understand what I'm talking about, that happens inside of me. This feeling is very uncomfortable. It's like an instant eruption inside my body. I get maybe like a dropping of my stomach, a sensation that my stomach is dropping when someone says or does something to me that I find I am outraged by. And what I've learned this sensation to be is our brain actually triggering our fight or flight response. What happens is the blood pulls away from our stomach and it contracts, preparing for physical danger. Someone's act towards me can cause my body to go into self-preservation mode, even in times when there is no actual danger. That's the thing that's so funny to me, because why can't we differentiate? Well, apparently the place of the brain that experiences pain pain and emotion is the same part of the brain. So the brain doesn't know the difference. So if you're experiencing offense and there's something that pains you or that strikes you, it's the same thing. Hormones like cortisol, which is a stress hormone, I think many of us are aware of that now, is released into your body. So it surges throughout your body, and then the blood goes into your muscles, literally to prepare you to fight or to flight. Defense is exactly that position that is played. Defense. So instead of fighting for the relationship, what we ended up doing, we didn't fight for the relationship. We didn't lean into the differences that we were able to recognize in each other. We began to fight against the friendship's best interests. We were fighting to win the relay race, but we were fighting solo. We were fighting to get the best game point average, but we were fighting solo. Have any of you ever had any arguments that looked like that? Where you're fighting solo, you're fighting to win? They get you to a certain point where you're only listening to respond. And then the next thing that they say offends you, you're on it. I know, I can't be the only one here. You're no longer in the space to consider what they have to say to you. You're just waiting for them to say something else that's offensive that you can bite back about. When I encounter a strong agitation from someone like that and it turns into an argument, I used to more often than not fall trap to that same thing myself. I fall trap to the offense and then I become defensive. And they would say something, right, that touches too close to home and it would disturb the peace that I was having about myself. I was in peace and here you come disturbing my peace. And in turn, what would happen is I would erupt into offense, causing the most natural next action to be to defend myself, which in turn makes them defend themselves. And then here we are, both playing basketball. It sounds really funny, right? But what are we really fighting for? If it's not for the relationship, what are we fighting for? There is a necessary reason to fight. I will not say fights are not meant to happen. Maybe I should call them arguments, not fights, okay? Inside of any relationship, there's going to be disagreements. And I personally haven't known any healthy relationships that don't have or haven't had their degree of testing and proofing, right? Some relationships, obviously to higher degrees than other, depending on the personality types and the style of relationship that it is. But if we are in this race running, fighting towards the betterment of the relationship, the offense becomes less like basketball and more like a relay. Is it making sense now? I hope so. If we could just learn to relay our feelings, relay our thoughts and our values that are being tested by our relational partners, our friends, our family, our romantic partners, we will begin to fight for each other. And not just fight for each other, we will fight with each other, not against each other. And that's what we are doing these days. At some point, we have to just self-reflect and start seeking to understand about why we are wanting to fight, or like me, flight. Why is that my response to offense? And of course, I'm speaking to myself here because I have encountered my fair share of offense throughout my life. And, I want to know why, but I also understand that it's my responsibility to manage, since it's something that I have taken. Offense is something that you take on. No one can give it to you. So they just give me the baton, which is whatever they have said or done. And I get to make that baton a disqualifying move or not. Offense is something that I've taken and no one gave it to me. They just gave me a baton, but I made that baton a disqualifying move. Don't give me your feelings about me. That causes me to test my feelings about me. Don't give me your thoughts about my values. That tests my thoughts about my values. Don't tell me how I'm rushing the exchange or dragging the pace of our relationship. Don't tell me how to run. I don't want you to test my performance in this race. I don't want you to tell me that you think I could be playing this game and running this race any better than I already am. Especially because if you're telling me that, who does that make you to me? My coach? Does this sound familiar to anyone? Offense and defense will have you cheering for yourself, by yourself. Meanwhile, the other person is chanting and cheering, doing the same thing for themselves. Neither of you taking steps towards winning the argument. I'm ashamed to say that I've known this all too well. And I find myself cheering for myself quite often. No, I am getting better cheering and high-fiving myself after an argument that I thought I won. I'm getting better, you guys. I am trying my best. I realize that I have a lot of personal judgment, and we'll speak about this in a second. And that's part of the reason why I'm so offended. I thought I won the argument though, right? When you fight like that, you're like, oh yes, I won. I did that. I told them everything. Meanwhile, the relationship has suffered another blow. And now you have to fix it and suture it and bandage it up. In a very timely way, I was watching a Bible study, and one of my pastors said this about offense. Offense and unforgiveness build a fence that keeps you in. Unforgiveness is like drinking poison every day and expecting the other person that offended you to die. That's by Pastor Marcus Dudley. Social media has become a lot like that these days, hasn't it? It has become incredibly harmful in the last decade. It used to be a place where we came to share and we came to connect and to give and to appreciate. And now it's become this big banner and advertisement mixed with equal amounts of virulent rhetoric, leading communities of people to absolute chaos and destruction. It is so destructive to open the app each day and have to sift through the thoughts and the droves of damaged men and women. The fighting, the cynicism, the basketball. I know I'm vilifying basketball right now, but I love basketball, obviously. It's just an example. To think that none of these perspectives, these trendy ways of being, of doing life with each other are based in anything other than selfishness is really ridiculous. It is killing the nature of how we relate to people. We are ignoring the elephant in the room, guys. We just ingest this all day. And I realize, of course, a lot of this is symptomatic. This violent rhetoric that we see and this violent behavior that we see, and we laugh out on TikTok and we just scroll and tap another one. And I know I do it endlessly too when I have time. That impacts the way that we view people that are right here with us. And we've got to be very careful about that. We jump on these bi-weekly bandwagons to hate somebody. We all get on the hate train, want to hate the same person at the same time. We start bullying people off of social media platforms and doxing them based on some very elevated sense of moral standing. Has it sickened you enough? I'm exhausted though. I'm exhausted. I'm offended in my own life. I'm exhausted of partaking of other people's offenses. It's a lot. I'm offended by something someone said. I'm offended by somebody I don't even know. It's a lot. I think we as a human race haven't become sick enough of ourselves to lay down our offenses. We're not sick enough to walk in attitudes of forgiveness and curiosity. We're not sick enough. We got to get sick enough of this negativity in order to try to turn this. We have to. We aren't curious though. We're canceling. We aren't for the team. We are the team. Our viewpoints are the only valid ones, and you either get on track or you get plowed over in the exchange zone. We feign like we are running the relay, but really, we're playing basketball out here. Foul after foul, flagrant at that. We play basketball. And that type of game ultimately works against us when it comes to relationships. My former friendship, for example, nothing great came out of the offense that we kept against each other. It didn't help us. It just drove us to more defensiveness and then drove a wedge between us until that relationship literally was unrecognizable and unrepairable. I've said enough of the complaints. What can we do to heal the nature of how we relate? Two things I mentioned just a couple moments ago I think will be helpful. One, I think we can become more curious and less canceling, less accusative of people. When someone says something that triggers an offense in you, acknowledge your feelings. Have a moment. You can have moments when you actually listen, by the way. Acknowledge your feelings and ask, what do they mean by that? Ask them though. Say, hey, what did you mean by that? You might be offended, but take a moment. Ask them what they meant first, because that curiosity could save a lot of things. It could redirect the conversation. I've had many of them before. The second thing I would say to do is get clarity about who your teammates are. That's not just who is on the same team as you, but what is the nature of your teammate? What is their nature? I think I talked about this last week in last episode. What is the nature of your friend? Do you know their nature, their spirit, how they move? If you did, you probably would become less offended because you know that if this is a true friend, they are moving from a place of love. You'll know what their splits are. You'll know what leg they run. You'll know how they perform under spontaneous pressure. Obviously, this is only relevant to those you know, right? If there's somebody that offends you that you don't know, you don't have that point of reference or that context. If you're skeptical about someone's nature, you got to get clarity about it so that you can build trust. Get clear on what that person expects of themselves so you know what to expect of them. Otherwise, defense will be your default response, I promise you, because there's no trust there, so you have no idea what to go off of. Lastly, I will say this requires you to know you. The way that you regulate your responses to affronts or offenses on your moral and physical compass is to know your own personal split time, know your own way to troubleshoot hiccups of the baton pass off in the relationship, know what you're great at in a team environment and what you aren't best at in a team environment. Do you know how to pass off responsibility, or are you nurturing the relationship? Are you always the one that needs to control how things are going in the relationship? Can you take a handoff that is almost about to be out of the exchange zone? How well do you adjust? Get clear. Get clear about what you expect of yourself so others can get clear about what to expect of you. You might find that they might treat you like you want to be treated when you know who you are. And perhaps that will beget less opportunities for offense to arise. When someone you care about agitates one of those judgments that you hold against yourself and you're ready to get active, you need some heart reconditioning. That's not the right heart to have with your teammates, the people that you care about, your loved ones. There is a heart issue there that is not allowing you to receive from the people who love you and that you say you love. Now, they could very well be wrong. I get that. They're not always going to be right. But there comes a point when their foul does not shake your free throw. Last episode, I spoke about real friends holding a mirror up to us. That is what they're supposed to do. Like any of our loved ones. If the fence is making you insufferable, I urge you to explore why. Explore why these negative feelings are consistently arising for you in the way that they do. When I stood in my offense and really acknowledged my level of safety after someone said something that took me aback, whether it was moral or physical, senses that were disturbed, I started to find that eruption that I was feeling in my body, that eruption of emotion on the inside, did not license me to defend myself against something that wasn't true about me. It wasn't true anyway. I don't need to defend myself. I know who I am. It didn't call for me to fight or flee or foul or run. It called for me to receive it. Maybe to consider it. And if it aligns, cosign. If not, thank you for your thoughts. If it aligns, cosign. If not, thank you for your thoughts. Today I've spoken, of course, mostly to myself. But I pray that it has spoken to some of you as well. I wouldn't be right to leave you, of course, with all of this conjecture and no scripture to encourage you towards a better heart conditioning. Whoever would foster love covers over an offense, but whoever repeats the matter separates close friends. Proverbs 17:9. It is up to us to foster enough love to cover the offenses of our friends, of our family, of our partners and our spouses. It is up to us to exercise responsibility over how we run this race. It's up to us to create the optimal environment for the team to thrive. It is up to us to fight for the win. Thank you for loving yourself first, so you can then go and love your neighbor. Until next time.
Why don't you stay a little longer? You like what you like, right? Subscribe to the channel so we can spend a little more time together, and maybe comment your thoughts because I care what you're thinking. Love is the risk and the reward.